Well, guys, we only heard the words "and knew" last night in one fight, and that was for Aljamain Sterling, but it was kind of a weird way to win a belt. Nick and I are talking about that fight and what happened right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, the title fight that kicked the night off at UFC 259 certainly proved to be the weirdest
for sure
and most controversial, albeit an extraordinarily exciting fight while it was taking place.
Yeah.
The ending was just not what we expected. It was anticlimactic, to say the least.
Yeah, and when you have 3 title fights on the line, you can't expect all of them to go off without a hitch. So I'm really unfortunate to see the bantamweights kind of left in this situation. We always want definitive answers when we leave a UFC fight behind us, and the bantamweights, they deserve some sort of clarity, and it just really sucks that we have a new champion that doesn't want that belt in that situation, those circumstances. And we have, clearly the most dangerous contender now in Petr Yan looming in the division that made a careless mistake. It cost him the belt. It's not like he's not getting punished for it, but this is just that was a series of unfortunate events that took place there last night.
You just have to really feel for Aljamain Sterling, because when you get that, is any fighter, if you have aspirations to go to the UFC, compete in the highest promotions, you just envision the day that Bruce Buffer says "and knew," and Dana straps that belt around your waist, and you just picture that being the most elated, enjoyable, happiest moment of your life.
Right.
And for Aljamain Sterling last night, it was everything but that.
Right.
It was literally the what he had worked for, his whole accumulation of years in the gym, of dedication to his craft, just kind of fell into his lap in a super anticlimactic sort of way. And he didn't want that. He was the last person that wanted him to win that way last night.
Yeah, and the way he threw the belt, you knew exactly how he felt. And you're so right. When you think about Dustin Poirier when he won that title, he's like, I paid for this in hard work and blood and sweat, and he can squeeze it and hug it and hold on to it, and that's just pure emotion that comes out when you climb to the top of the mountain. And unfortunately for Aljamain Sterling, he feels like he was gifted a belt. And while that sounds great for a lot of people in this world love a free gift. They love a handout or something like that. Well, hardworking fighters, top contenders in martial arts, and people that are true warriors don't want anything given to them, and they damn sure don't want any sort of notoriety or award for something that they think they didn't earn. And I feel like Aljamain Sterling, when he goes back and watches the fight, unfortunately, it's going to make him even a little bit more upset, because he felt like and he was wildly concussed last night. He felt like he was like, I think it was a competitive fight. The fans were for sure loving it. And by the way, Aljo, we were. It was a close fight. Yeah, the beginning was a little bit close, but then Petr Yan really started to pull away with it. And I just feel like it's going to gut Aljamain Sterling to watch that fight back and realize that he was starting to really get manhandled, and it looked like he was on the brink of getting finished right before the fight did get finished with an illegal knee. Yeah,
there's so much to unpack with this fight and all that happened. I think I'll start with something that Chael Sonnen said in the post-fight show that they did on ESPN Plus, and I think I couldn't sum it up any better if I tried. He said, if a fighter is not able to win a belt by disqualification of the other fighter, then that totally disincentivizes the champion or whoever's holding, or whoever the other fighter is, not to cheat. And I said, that is a great way of putting it, because if you can do something illegal in a fight and get away with it and still retain your belt, then what the hell's the incentive to play by the rules?
Right.
And as he said, there's only a few rules. You can't bite, you can't gouge the eyes, and you can't kick an opponent while they're down.
Yeah.
And, they were talking about, Khabib said that Petr Yan was asking, do I kick him? Do I not kick him? Yeah. I understand there may have been a bit of confusion there, and I'm drawing a blank on the coach's name from Tiger Muay Thai. He's got a super heavy Scottish accent. Me, as a native, lifelong English speaker, have a hard time understanding what he says at times.
Yeah.
No disrespect to any Scottish fans out there. I think that's probably probably the coolest accent that the English language offers.
Yeah.
However, for me, it's a little bit difficult to understand. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you're a champion of an organization, you must know the rules of the sport in which you play.
Right.
And Petr Yan to be standing there over Aljamain Sterling, a fighter that he's gotten on his knees in front of him, the fight's all but won, and not know what he can do at that point, it's inexcusable.
Yeah.
And I do think they should run this back. I want to see this fight again. I think Petr Yan was pulling away with it, as you said. But if they decided not to give Petr Yan the immediate rematch, I wouldn't be that upset by that. And I know that might upset a lot of people who hear that, but everybody wants to pile on to TJ for cheating. And I understand it's a different type of cheating, and I understand it was a more serious offense. TJ paid 2 years of his life on the sidelines, not able to generate an income, or at least through fighting, during that time period. So why should Petr Yan be immediately given the rematch? So I think it's at least something to think about.
Yeah, and one thing's for sure is Petr Yan is the most talented 135er on the planet.
Yeah, no question.
After last night's performance, the way he dominated Aljamain Sterling was ridiculous. I mean, if we're gonna pat him on the back a little bit, obviously we have to slap his wrist a bit because he did do a horribly illegal knee. And excuse me. Oh, I thought I was going to sneeze there. Sorry. Here it comes.
Bless you.
Sorry, guys. As I was watching the replay of that corner talking to him, and it's weird because you can't hear it without the crowd being there. You would see he was kind of hearing his corner, but there was no way he heard them and then acted on it as quickly as he did. The way he heard something and then acted on it was just, I don't believe that to be the case. I think he made a careless, honest mistake. He was told by the referee in the back, obviously what a downed opponent is, and everybody in mixed martial arts that's a fighter should know what a downed opponent is when they have both hands on the ground, obviously one hand on the ground even, but also whenever a knee or two knees are on the ground. And he said, look, I felt both of his hands up on my arms trying to defend, and I didn't even pay attention to his knees or his legs, and I just assumed he was on both feet, sent the knee. It was a careless mistake. Obviously, I'm paying for it with my belt. But what I want people to understand in the mixed martial arts world is you have to know the rules. And oftentimes fighters go, oh, well, they chalk it up to all the commissions having different rules. I'm sorry, but if you're fighting on a Saturday night, you're only fighting in one of those athletic commissions areas.
Right.
And if you're in California, I don't care if you have to get the pamphlet and read the whole thing the night before, study it like it's an exam. You don't break those rules. And then if you go to New York 2 months later and fight and they have a totally different set of rules, guess what? You better grab the pamphlet out and read that one, because it's inexcusable for fights to end like this when and chalk it up to, well, I just didn't know the rules. You're a professional athlete. You think if in the NFL somebody just did some sort of illegal motion and it just wouldn't happen.
No. Look, Tom Brady's back for a pass and he's asking Bill Belichick back when he played for the Patriots, can I do this? No, you know what the rule set is. Right. And by the way, exactly what you just said there is spot on. You're only competing in one commission on one night, so you need to know that rules. Here in Texas, we're a big state. We got a lot of empty space, and guess what? The speed limit's 80 miles an hour some places in this state. Cross the border and go into Mississippi and drive 80 miles an hour and then tell the cop that pulled you over, well, back in Texas, it's 80. But it's inexcusable, and I'm not a fan of the hand down. I think that's a hack. I think they should do away with that. If you're on both feet and you just reach your hand down to be a quote-unquote grounded opponent, I don't like that. I think they should get rid of that. But when you're on your knees in front of somebody, you are the definition of a down opponent. Right. And Yan, there's no excuse. He should have known that. And I'm not piling on Yan. I think he's the best 135er in the world. He made a careless mistake, and as you said, he paid for it with his belt. And, I think he's going to get the immediate shot back, but at least for the next 6 months or however long it takes, he's not the champ anymore. Aljamain Sterling is, and he's going to come in with blue tape on his gloves next time, not in those gold shiny, who knows what the Venom attire is going to look like, but
can't wait to see.
But I can't wait to see. But he's not going to come in with the champion's shorts on.
Or get the champion benefits as far as pay-per-view goes.
Right. And so I think that, and another thing I really want to bring up here is that I wasn't really happy with the way the ref handled that last night.
Oh, me either.
The referee was trying to ask a clearly concussed fighter who couldn't, let alone stand up, couldn't even come to his elbows and kind of sit up. You can't ask him what color the sky is and expect the answer to be worth a damn. So you have to take into consideration, okay, I just witnessed a fighter get hit with a blatantly illegal shot, and the fighter who got hit with that shot is now concussed on the ground and doesn't know where he is. This fight's over. You want to bring in the doctor for a few seconds to just confirm that the guy's concussed or confirm that the guy's eyes are glazed over? Fine, do that. But it seemed like he was trying to somewhat convince Aljo to continue or salvage the fight. I don't think that was his intention. I understand I don't want to pile on the refs because they have a hard job to do, and there's a lot of pressure on them to perform because if they make a big mistake, it could be even worse than the judges making a bad mistake. Right. So, I don't want to come off too harsh, but I do think that he made a critical error by trying to rely on the words of a concussed fighter to determine, at least for a couple of minutes there, what was going to happen thereafter. Yeah, and the number one job for the referee is to keep the fighter safe at all costs. As soon as there's somebody who cannot win a fight or protect themselves, they have to call the night for that fighter and let them live to fight another day. That's a very real saying. But, truly live to fight another day. I mean, Aljamain Sterling could have been seriously injured or, God forbid, gotten killed if he had been tough enough to actually stand up and continue that fight against an absolute savage. It's not like Petr Yan's a submission artist. No. We knew what was going to happen if Aljamain stood back up and continued fighting. Yeah, he was cracking him and dropped him a couple of times and tripped him also. It was bad. But, instead of the 3 minutes of them just waiting in limbo, trying to figure out if he's okay or not, and, taking it like it's a groin shot where, you get 5 minutes. Yeah. Hey, you get 5 minutes. Breathe off this concussion because you might be able to go again if you feel up to it. He needed immediate medical attention. He didn't need to be trying to get him stand himself back up, and that's part of why boxing has so many more deaths than MMA. Aljamain Sterling wasn't able to get up in 10 seconds. In boxing, that fight would have been called. But, God forbid if he would have been able to get up in 10 seconds. Those are the types of people in those type of mental states that stand back up and continue boxing and continue to get hit in the head. It's a horrible situation. And Aljamain Sterling, one thing I feel for him, and this kind of makes me feel like maybe it's not the best idea for him to fight Petr Yan next, is I feel like there's going to be this dark cloud that looms over him all the way through to his next fight. And if it's against Petr Yan, he's going to be gun shy. I don't care what anybody says. He knows what that guy did to him last time. And even though the final blow was an illegal one, he was accumulating some serious damage, and all led up to a horrifying concussion that he's still feeling right now and will continue to feel for probably the next month. So if for that purpose, I'd like to see Aljo fight somebody other than Petr Yan. But when I say that, I also realize that there's truly nobody else that deserves to be locked in a cage with Petr Yan right now besides whoever holds that belt, because he's too dangerous to just throw into the mix. Yeah, he's a savage. And what you said about boxing is so true. It's not the first concussion that kills you. It's the second, third, fourth, and fifth that happen in the same fight that kills you. Right. So that's why you see that happen in boxing much more often than you see happen in MMA, because in boxing, or in MMA, sorry, if somebody goes to the ground, it's usually followed up by a few strikes. They're kind of defended for the most part. You saw a really bad fight with Curtis Blades and Derek the other day. Yeah. That's about as bad as MMA gets as far as a knockout goes, especially when Derek Lewis is the one throwing the punches. Right. But with boxing, you see somebody go down on a bad shot like that, they could get up and feasibly take 200 more shots to the head before the fight's over. And so you just can't do that. I think it was a mistake by the referee. And also, I hate to keep bringing up the judging, but one judge had Aljamain Sterling winning that fight when it got stopped. Must have been blind. I don't know what they were seeing. Aljamain Sterling had his moments. Aljamain Sterling's an athletic, gritty, tough fighter. And Petr Yan, I know we spent enough time in this video piling onto Petr Yan, so I won't continue to do that. I want to talk now about what he did right. He was very patient. He was very crisp, and every shot he threw hurt. That's the Muay Thai way. That's what those guys. He's spent a lot of time at Tiger Muay Thai, and that's what they do in Thailand. They throw to hurt. His Muay Thai is next level. Yeah, he's throwing heavy punches, straight punches down the pipe, dropping Aljo with one punch, and then daring him to get back up, chewing up the legs while he's on the ground. Petr Yan's a world beater. Petr Yan's a savage. And he's the best 135er in the world right now. But I just can't excuse the mistake. It's a rookie mistake for somebody who's anything but a rookie.
Yeah, you can't excuse the mistake, but when we talk about that fight and the performance he was having, Aljamain Sterling came with a pressure unlike anybody else's. I mean, his athleticism was really showing last night. And in the first round, I was like, damn, this is all Aljo for the first 3 minutes of the round. And then all of a sudden, he just gets dropped. He gets tripped. And then Petr Yan steals the first round from him, I think.
Yep.
After a couple of drops and a couple of trips, he stole the first round. And then the second round, I go, okay, that one was clearly a Petr Yan round. Third round was all Petr Yan, and that's when it happened, right? Was it third or fourth round?
I think it was the third. I think it was close to the end of the third. Yeah. I haven't gone back and rewatched the fight yet.
Actually, I'd love to go back and rewatch the fight tonight, but it was all Petr Yan, and he was just making it worse and worse. By the time the fight was almost over, he was kind of toying with Aljamain.
Yeah.
He was tripping him at will. Those Muay Thai maneuvers he was doing were better than anybody I've seen in MMA. You know, Rafael Fiziev comes to mind. Israel Adesanya is obviously a decorated kickboxer, but I have not seen Izzy even look as crisp with some of the Muay Thai stuff and some of the high-level striking as Petr Yan did.
The clinch sweeps
night.
And all of that was beautiful. I mean, Petr Yan's, he's exceptional.
And he did it to Aljamain Sterling, who Aljamain Sterling has proven himself to be, without a doubt, the number one contender at 135. It's just, I think we're starting to realize skill-wise, there's a gap between Petr Yan, Aljamain Sterling, and everybody else.
Yeah, and I can tell you if there was any one big loser last night and somebody who would rather have eaten that shot himself than dealt with that outcome is Corey Sandhagen. Because now they're going to have to, run this back. And
kick the can.
They're talking about Corey versus TJ for a number one contenders fight, but now that's been pushed off because you have a number one contender and his name is Petr Yan, and now he's coming back. But like I said, if they gave the winner of I'm a big believer in you should be punished for doing the crime, but when you've served your time and done your punishment, you should be given a clean slate. And I believe TJ Dillashaw should be given a clean slate. And I believe that if he knocks out Corey Sandhagen, who's been on a tear lately, that he deserves to get another title shot. I really believe that. Yeah. But I think that Petr Yan is going to get that next. We'll have to see what happens if they actually finalize the Sandhagen versus TJ fight, how that goes. But 135, which was already a bit of a logjam division, just got that much more so.
Yeah, for sure. And if you believe that TJ Dillashaw doesn't deserve a immediate title shot after that, and I don't think he'll get that. I don't think Petr Yan deserves one because what they did was cheating. Cheating is cheating. Period. End of story. And there are definitely varying levels to the cheating, but one guy's already paid for it, and then the other guy with 2 years of suspension, the other guy just paid for it with his belt. So now we're kind of even, Steven. They both technically can earn an immediate title shot. I think they're probably going to give it to Petr Yan because they realize just the talent that he has. I don't think that he was trying to sabotage his own career last night. No. I think it was a careless, dumb mistake that he made. And like I said, he's paying for it with his belt. He's going to go back to camp. Like I said, he better have that pamphlet with him and read all the rules. And I don't care if he needs to read them in Russian and Scottish and English, whatever he needs to read it in. He needs to make sure he understands all the rules and doesn't throw something else illegal in his next bout. Or, the UFC could cut him. And imagine that sort of guy being out in a league that doesn't have truly the best fighters in the world. He's simply too dangerous for anybody besides the top 3, top 2, maybe top 5 in the UFC.
It sounds crazy to hear you say that, but do that a couple more times and they will cut you.
They will.
Like they won't deal with somebody who's a liability to the other fighters, and they're causing damage. And who knows? Dana said Aljo's okay. I mean, what does okay mean? He's suffered a severe concussion, but he's going to make it. He's going to be went home last night. Presumably,
he passed some sort of an eye test, and they said he's okay to go home instead of the hospital.
Yeah, but I mean, but let's say just hypothetically, Yan does that again in the next fight. Yeah, what should they do? That will, like, doing it once, you get a little, it's like fool me once,
Right.
shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me.
Right.
So Yan better be careful with how he approaches this next fight.
Right.
And I think that he's 28 years old. Like I said, going into this fight, he was the only champion that was in his 20s. He was the youngest champion in the organization. He's got a ton of potential. He's got a ton of years still in front of him. You got to get this under control. You got to know the rules. You got to do better because you could be one of the greats if you keep on.
Absolutely. And not only does he need to learn the rules, but I think the commission, the doctors, and the referees need to understand the rules of what happens when somebody gets illegally kneed or just an illegal strike happens of any sort. We need to understand and have definitive answers, not only for the fighters and everybody involved in, but the casuals. They don't want to turn on something and not know how it's going to end or not know why something just happened the way it just happened. Why the guy who seemingly just lost the fight, just left with the belt. They need to understand all these things, and they need to make it, the commissions and the promotion need to make it simple for the people that flip it on and wind up on the channel. So I think, unfortunately, for the bantamweights, we have some answers that need some questions that need some answering, but other than that, it really was the highest level of mixed martial arts that we could have seen last night.
And it's not. I saw Demetrius Johnson come out and say that shouldn't be illegal, that should be a good shot. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but DJ is one of the great minds of MMA, so I certainly appreciate and respect what his opinion is. But I disagree the rule is the rule. You can love it, you can hate it, you can be indifferent about it, but it is the rule, and some rules should be changed.
Right.
The 12-6 elbow that caused John the disqualification, I believe that should be changed. I think that was from an old, outdated, rule set where somebody saw some old sensei break a board 12-6, and they said, okay, that strike is just way too dangerous. If you can break, a thing of bricks that you could just tear through somebody's skull and just rip them straight in half. Obviously, that's not true. There's a lot of theatrics that goes on in martial arts, but yeah, I think that certain rules should be revised and should be changed. But as it stands, if today is March 6, 2021, these are the rules. These are these are rule sets you have to compete under as of right now. There isn't an excuse for a champion not to know them and not to adhere to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
yeah. Well, guys, let us know what you thought about the fight. Obviously, it wasn't the outcome that any of us wanted. Should they run it back? Should Yan be a little bit more punished and have to wait a fight and maybe take one more in between? I think they probably should run it back. I'm willing to excuse Yan once, but this has got to be the one and only time. Guys, please like, comment, and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video, and check us out on audio where you listen to those podcasts. Have a wonderful day.
Peace.